The quantum resonance chamber of the Zarkonian reconnaissance vessel hummed with an unsettling frequency. Scout Commander Krillex adjusted the neural link interface, watching holographic displays flicker with increasingly bizarre readings from the blue-green planet below. Earth defied every standard classification in the Galactic database. Standard reconnaissance protocols suggested a straightforward mission: identify technological capabilities, assess potential threats, map communication networks. But nothing about this planet followed standard protocols. The electromagnetic spectrum danced with contradictions. Massive urban centers pulsed with energy so complex it bordered on organic, while entire regions demonstrated technological capabilities that seemed to fluctuate between primitive and impossibly advanced. Krillex studied the initial data streams, mandibles clicking with frustration. The primary science officer, Sub-Commander Vexnar, approached with another set of incomprehensible readings. "Commander," she said, her voice translated through multiple quantum filters, "the planetary scanning systems are producing anomalous results that defy our current computational models." The holographic display shifted, revealing multiple layers of information. Major population centers appeared relatively predictable. Networks of communication, energy consumption, technological infrastructure. But between these centers lay zones of deliberate technological obfuscation. Satellite imaging showed carefully maintained dead zones, regions where technological development seemed intentionally suppressed or redirected. "Look here," Vexnar highlighted a region in the North American continent. A massive research facility nestled in a mountain range appeared and disappeared from scanning resolution. One moment it showed a complex of buildings with advanced energy signatures. The next it resolved into nothing more than a geological formation. "Our scanning algorithms cannot maintain a consistent reading of this location." Krillex leaned forward, compound eyes focusing on the shifting image. Quantum entanglement sensors, the most advanced detection technology in the known galaxy, were being systematically confused. Not blocked, not destroyed. Confused. As if the very fabric of reality around certain human installations became intentionally unstable. "Calculate the probability," Krillex commanded, "that these anomalies are accidental." Vexinar's neural implants worked furiously, quantum processors spinning through millions of potential scenarios. After precisely 2.7 standard galactic minutes, she responded. "Probability of accidental interference, 0.00003%. These disruptions appear deliberate. The implications were profound. Deliberate technological camouflage suggested a level of planetary defense far beyond simple military infrastructure. Humans were not just hiding something. They were actively managing perception itself. Another layer of data revealed even more perplexing information. Global communication networks showed remarkable complexity, not in their technological sophistication, which was impressive but not unprecedented, but in their information flow. Traditional intelligence gathering would identify patterns, predict behavioral models, but human communication defied such simple analysis. Social media platforms, scientific research networks, government communication channels, each seemed to contain multiple layers of meaning. Information was simultaneously shared and obscured. A dance of revelation and misdirection that made traditional intelligence gathering look like a child's guessing game. "They're watching us," Vexnar said quietly, a statement that would have been considered heretical on any other Zarkonian vessel. "Not just monitoring our approach, evaluating our capabilities." Krillex didn't respond immediately. The quantum resonance chamber continued its soft humming, a counterpoint to the growing sense of unease. Preliminary reports from initial reconnaissance drones told a story of calculated complexity. Probes designed to be undetectable had been systematically neutralized, not through direct destruction, but through methods that suggested a profound understanding of quantum mechanics that exceeded current galactic scientific knowledge. One drone had transmitted a final fragmented image before going dark, a research facility surrounded by a landscape that seemed to shift and blur, as if reality itself was being manipulated. Energy signatures that didn't just bend the laws of physics but seemed to negotiate with them. "Prepare the next phase of investigation," Krillex finally said. "But be warned, this planet is not what it appears to be. Humans are playing a game far more complex than simple planetary defense." Vexnar nodded, her neural implants already calculating potential approach vectors that might penetrate the planet's mysterious defenses. But both knew their chances of truly understanding Earth were vanishingly small. Something was watching, and that something was decidedly, undeniably human. The first reconnaissance drone disappeared over the Arizona desert, its quantum-encrypted transmission reduced to a cascade of fragmented data. Krillex watched the holographic replay for the 17th time, mandibles clicking with increasing agitation. The final image was a nightmare of geological impossibility. Crystalline structures that seemed to phase in and out of dimensional existence, buried beneath layers of rock that defied geological dating. "Spectral analysis," Krillex demanded of Vexnar, who was already preparing the report. Her neural implants projected a comprehensive breakdown. The crystal formations contained molecular structures that shouldn't exist. Carbon-based compounds intertwined with quantum-resonant materials in patterns that suggested intentional design rather than natural formation. Each molecular layer told a story of impossible engineering. Materials that existed simultaneously in multiple states of matter. The second drone vanished in the Himalayan mountain range, its quantum sensors overloaded by an energy signature that seemed to exist between dimensions. Initial readings suggested a research facility hidden deep within the mountain complex, but as the probe approached, reality itself became unstable. Topographical maps shifted. Mountain ranges seemed to breathe and reshape. Electronic systems experienced cascading failures that went beyond simple interference. "It's as if the landscape is alive," Vexnar muttered, a statement that would have been dismissed as poetic nonsense on any other Zarkonian vessel. But here, reviewing the data, it seemed terrifyingly literal. Krillex activated the tertiary investigation protocol. 12 specially designed probes, each equipped with the most advanced scanning technology in the Galactic Confederation, would approach Earth from different vectors. Stealth systems that could penetrate the most secure planetary defenses. Quantum entanglement communication arrays that could transmit data through multiple dimensional barriers. Hours passed, then days. The probes began to fail in patterns that defied statistical probability. One disappeared near the Great Barrier Reef, its last transmission showing impossible marine topographies. Underwater structures that seemed to shift between biological and technological states. Ecosystems that responded to the probe's presence with what could only be described as deliberate intelligence. Another vanished in the middle of the Sahara Desert, transmitting images of underground complexes that appeared and disappeared like quantum mirages. Energy signatures suggested massive technological infrastructure buried beneath seemingly barren landscapes. But each time the probe attempted to map these structures, they would dissolve into geological formations. The most disturbing loss came from a probe monitoring a seemingly innocuous research facility in New Mexico. The facility appeared ordinary, a collection of buildings surrounded by desert landscape. But as the probe's advanced sensors began to map the location, something fundamentally wrong became apparent. The buildings themselves seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. One moment, a standard research complex with typical technological infrastructure. The next, a structure that suggested capabilities far beyond current understanding. Energy signatures flickered between different technological paradigms. Quantum resonance patterns suggested computational systems that didn't just process information but seemed to negotiate with the very fabric of reality. "They're hiding something," Krillex said, a statement that went far beyond simple planetary defense mechanisms. Vexnar's analysis confirmed the impossible. These weren't just advanced research facilities. They were something else entirely. Distributed networks of technological nodes that seemed to communicate through methods that went beyond electromagnetic or quantum communication. More disturbing were the blank spaces. Entire geographical regions where information simply ceased to exist. Not blocked, not scrambled, simply absent, as if reality itself had been edited with the precision of a surgeon removing an inconvenient memory. The Zarkonian High Command would demand answers, but Krillex knew the truth. They were no closer to understanding Earth than when they first approached the planet. Humanity was playing a game of perception and reality that went far beyond traditional concepts of planetary defense or technological superiority. Something was watching, evaluating, controlling, and that something was undeniably, impossibly human. The covert Zarkonian ground team materialized near the research facility nestled deep in the Rocky Mountains. Commander Zorak had personally selected these 6 operatives, each a pinnacle of Zarkonian special operations training. Quantum camouflage technology rendered them invisible to conventional detection systems. Advanced neural implants allowed instantaneous communication. Adaptive biomechanical exoskeletons could withstand extreme environmental conditions. They were the best of the best. Technological perfection incarnate. Within moments of their arrival, something began to go terribly wrong. The first indication came from Senior Operative Krell. His quantum communicator, a device that could transmit information across galactic distances with perfect clarity, began to emit a high-pitched whine. Static crackled through the neural interface. Fragments of meaningless data scrolled across his visual display. Command. Krell sub-vocalized, "We're experiencing minor communication disruption." Minor was a gross understatement. As they approached the facility's outer perimeter, their most advanced surveillance equipment started to malfunction. Adaptive camouflage systems flickered unpredictably. One moment, an operative would be perfectly concealed. The next, they would become startlingly visible, then phase between states of visibility. The facility itself defied standard architectural understanding. Quantum resonance scanners couldn't maintain a consistent reading of its structural composition. Walls seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Solid concrete one moment, translucent energy matrix the next. Geometric patterns that should have been impossible danced across its surface. Operative Lyra was the first to experience direct neural interference. Her advanced neural link implant began broadcasting nonsensical data streams, mathematical equations that solved themselves, historical records that contradicted known galactic history, fragments of scientific theories that existed simultaneously as both proven fact and impossible hypothesis. "Something is interfacing with my systems," she reported, her voice tight with professional control barely masking rising panic. The team's leader, Commander Zorak, recognized the signs of a sophisticated technological defense mechanism. But this was something else entirely. Not a simple defensive system, but an intelligent network that seemed to be studying them as much as they were investigating it. Their adaptive scanning equipment began to fail in cascading sequences. Thermal imaging systems showed impossible heat signatures. Quantum entanglement detectors produced readings that suggested the facility existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Biological scanning interfaces started generating impossible physiological data about the environment itself. A strange sensation began to permeate the team's collective consciousness. It wasn't a traditional psychological warfare technique. Something was actively rewriting their perceptual frameworks. Memory became fluid. Operational protocols began to blur. Krell watched in horror as his tactical display transformed. One moment, it showed standard topographical mapping. The next, it displayed complex mathematical models that seemed to predict potential actions before they could be conceived. Probability matrices that didn't just calculate possibilities but seemed to negotiate with potential realities. The facility's outer walls began to shimmer. Not with light, not with energy, but with something that existed between perception and reality. Operative Lyra's neural implants suddenly went dark. Then, just as suddenly, they rebooted. But something was fundamentally different. Fragments of information flooded her consciousness. Scientific discoveries, technological concepts, historical records that suggested humanity's role in the galaxy was far more complex than anyone had imagined. Commander Zorak made a critical decision. Retreat, he commanded. Immediate extraction. But extraction proved impossible. Their quantum transportation systems failed. Backup communication protocols dissolved into meaningless data streams. Even their emergency beacon, a device designed to function under any circumstances, became nothing more than an inert piece of technology. They were cut off, isolated, studied. As darkness fell, the research facility's true nature became increasingly apparent. This was no simple defensive installation. It was something far more profound. A nexus point of technological and informational control that went far beyond traditional concepts of planetary defense. Something was watching them, evaluating them. And that something was undeniably, impossibly human. Deep within the Zarkonian Central Analysis Chamber, holographic displays cascaded with impossible data. Jack Harper's personnel file defied every standard intelligence protocol. What should have been a simple biographical record had transformed into a labyrinth of contradictions and strategic misdirection. On the surface, Harper appeared unremarkable. A mid-level intelligence analyst working for the United States Department of Defense. Born in Denver, Colorado. Standard educational background. Minimal public profile. The kind of bureaucrat that typically faded into institutional background noise. But the deeper the Zarkonian intelligence networks probed, the more impossible his existence became. Financial records showed a life of calculated mediocrity. Modest government salary, unremarkable suburban home, a few investments that performed precisely at market average. Yet beneath this veneer of ordinariness lay a web of information management, so sophisticated it bordered on artistic manipulation. Quantum analysis of global communication networks revealed Harper's true function. He wasn't just an analyst. He was a curator of planetary information. Scientific discoveries that could revolutionize human understanding would mysteriously disappear. Archaeological findings that challenged established historical narratives would be systematically redirected or buried. Technological breakthroughs would be fragmented, their potential obscured by carefully constructed bureaucratic mazes. The pattern was too consistent to be coincidental. One incident stood out with particular clarity. In 2019, a research team in New Zealand discovered evidence of advanced metallurgical techniques that predated known human civilization by several thousand years. The original research paper underwent a metamorphosis that defied logical explanation. First, key researchers were quietly reassigned to different projects. Funding was redirected. Communication channels were subtly manipulated. The original data found its way into obscure academic journals, buried beneath layers of technical language that ensured minimal attention. By the time the dust settled, the revolutionary discovery had been reduced to a footnote in an obscure archaeological publication. Harper's digital fingerprints were everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Communication intercepts showed a network of influence that spanned global institutions, universities, government agencies, research facilities, media organizations. Each seemed to operate independently, yet they moved with a synchronicity that suggested a deeper, more complex coordination. The Zarkonian analysis team developed a term for this phenomenon: perceptual engineering. It went far beyond traditional information control. This was a systematic management of human collective knowledge, a deliberate shaping of planetary understanding. Financial trails told an equally bizarre story. Seemingly unrelated investments would align with remarkable precision. Research grants would be redirected. Technological development would be strategically compartmentalized, not suppressed, not destroyed, but carefully managed to prevent certain lines of investigation from reaching critical mass. One of Harper's most intriguing operations involved a series of astronomical research facilities. Promising deep space observation projects would receive just enough funding to appear legitimate, but critical components would always be missing. Funding would be structured to ensure that truly revolutionary discoveries remained perpetually just beyond reach. The quantum probability matrices suggested this was no simple governmental control mechanism. This was something far more profound, a deliberate, systematic management of human potential. Most disturbing were the gaps. Entire regions of human knowledge where information seemed to flow through Harper's network like water through a carefully designed channel. Scientific disciplines, historical research, technological development, each seemed to move according to an invisible set of guidelines. Kralex reviewed the accumulated data with growing unease. This wasn't just information management. This was reality curation. Jack Harper was more than an analyst. He was an architect of human perception. The final piece of evidence came from an unexpected source, a seemingly innocuous email buried deep in a communication archive, encrypted with a method that seemed to exist between classical and quantum cryptography. Its contents were both everything and nothing. A single line of text: maintain current vector. Potential breakthrough requires continued obscurity. The sender: unknown. The recipient: untraceable. But the stylistic markers matched Harper's communication patterns perfectly. Something was watching, guiding, controlling. And that something was undeniably, impossibly human. The communication channel opened without warning. Kralex watched in stunned silence as a human woman appeared on the primary holographic display. Her appearance was simultaneously unremarkable and unnerving. Mid-40s, professional attire, dark hair pulled back in a precise ponytail. The kind of person who could walk through any government building without drawing a second glance. Emily Rodriguez introduced herself as a State Department liaison. No preliminary communication, no standard diplomatic protocols, just a direct transmission that bypassed every known communication security system the Zarkonian fleet possessed. "You've been asking questions," she said, her voice carrying a weight that transcended mere linguistic communication. Each word seemed to exist in multiple layers of meaning, questions you're not prepared to understand. The transmission itself was a technological marvel. Quantum encryption methods that shouldn't exist. Communication channels that seemed to phase between different dimensional states. The very act of communication became a demonstration of capabilities far beyond what the Zarkonian intelligence had anticipated. Kralex realized they were no longer investigating. They were being evaluated. Rodriguez's eyes seemed to look directly through the communication interface, not just at the visual display, but through it, as if she could perceive the entire Zarkonian command structure with a single glance. "Your reconnaissance efforts," she continued, "have been noted, but I want to be very clear about something. There are doors that should remain closed, discoveries that are not meant to be made, not by your civilization, not by any civilization." The communication was a masterpiece of strategic communication. Each sentence contained multiple layers of information. Linguistic analysis would later reveal that the transmission contained embedded data streams that went far beyond the spoken words. Mathematical equations, quantum probability matrices, fragments of scientific understanding that seemed to exist simultaneously as both revelation and deliberate misdirection. "We are not what you believe us to be," Rodriguez said. The word "we" carried a weight that suggested something far beyond human collective identity. Humanity serves a function that your current level of understanding cannot comprehend. Kralex felt something unprecedented. Fear. Not the simple biological response of a predator-prey interaction, but a profound existential recognition that they were encountering something fundamentally different. A form of intelligence that didn't just exceed technological capabilities, but existed on an entirely different conceptual plane. Rodriguez's transmission began to break down, not through technical failure, but through what could only be described as intentional dimensional shifting. Her image would become momentarily translucent. Fragments of background would suggest impossible architectural spaces. Quantum resonance patterns would flicker at the edge of perception. "Your mission ends here," she said. The statement was neither threat nor suggestion, simply a fact. Detailed analysis of the transmission would consume Zarkonian researchers for decades. Each frame contained impossible amounts of information, quantum communication protocols that seemed to negotiate with the very fabric of reality. Embedded data streams that contained scientific discoveries, historical fragments, and mathematical models that defied current understanding. The most disturbing element was the transmission's origin point. Standard geolocation systems placed it simultaneously in multiple locations: a research facility in New Mexico, a government building in Washington, D.C., and underwater research station in the Pacific Ocean. Quantum positioning systems reported coordinates that existed in a state of perpetual quantum uncertainty. As the transmission concluded, Krillex understood a fundamental truth. Humanity was not just another planetary civilization to be categorized and understood. They were something else entirely. Guardians, managers, architects of a reality that went far beyond simple technological superiority. Something was watching, evaluating, controlling, and that something was undeniably, impossibly human. The intercepted communications arrived in fragments, each more bewildering than the last. Guardian protocols activated, one transmission read. Quantum encryption made the message both everywhere and nowhere. Containment field at 78% stability. Arcanian linguistic analysts worked frantically to deconstruct the message. What should have been a simple communication became a labyrinth of meaning. The word guardian carried weight beyond simple protective terminology. It suggested a role that transcended planetary defense or scientific observation. Another fragment spoke of something called the axiom horizon, a term that sent cascading errors through translation matrices. Quantum computers designed to parse any known language simply stopped, not crashed, not overloaded, simply ceased functional analysis. The most disturbing intercepts came from what appeared to be a distributed network of human research facilities. Communications that seemed to speak past each other, yet maintained a complex coherence that suggested a form of collective intelligence far beyond traditional understanding. Temporal markers indicate increasing dimensional stress. One message read. Another, seemingly unrelated, responded. Maintain current suppression protocols. Evolutionary divergence must be managed. Krillex assembled the most advanced analysis team. Quantum linguists, dimensional theorists, information flow specialists, each brought to bear the most sophisticated analytical tools in the Galactic Confederation. They discovered patterns that defied comprehension. Scientific research across multiple disciplines showed signs of deliberate redirection, not suppression, not destruction, but careful, almost surgical management of human knowledge development. Promising lines of research would receive just enough attention to appear legitimate. Critical breakthroughs would be systematically compartmentalized. Archaeological discoveries told an even more bizarre story. Sites that suggested human civilization was far older and more complex than current historical models allowed. Evidence of technological understanding that seemed to phase in and out of historical record. Discoveries that would fundamentally rewrite human understanding of their own origins. One intercepted communication referenced something called preservation mandate. The language suggested a role that went far beyond planetary protection. These humans spoke of managing not just their own civilization, but potentially the developmental trajectory of entire species. Biological potential requires careful management. One transmission read. Technological emergence must be controlled to prevent cascading dimensional contamination. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just protecting itself. They were protecting something larger, something that existed beyond simple planetary or even galactic understanding. Quantum probability matrices suggested multiple layers of intervention. Economic systems subtly guided. Technological development carefully managed. Scientific discovery strategically revealed or obscured, not through crude manipulation, but through an almost organic process of information flow control. The most chilling evidence came from a series of communications that referenced something called threshold events. Fragments suggested an understanding of technological and evolutionary development that went far beyond current scientific models. Previous cascade events resulted in 2.7 million sentient species termination. One transmission read. Current intervention protocols show 94% probability of successful mitigation. Krillex realized they were no longer looking at a planetary defense mechanism. This was something else entirely. a form of cosmic management that human civilization seemed to be a critical component of. Intercepted research notes hinted at capabilities that bordered on the incomprehensible. Dimensional manipulation, temporal understanding that suggested reality itself was more fluid than previously believed, references to seed civilizations and evolutionary firewalls that imply humanity's role was far more complex than simple planetary existence. The final piece of intercepted communication came as a single cryptic message: maintain current vector. Potential breakthrough requires continued obscurity. Something was watching, guiding, protecting, and that something was undeniably, impossibly human. The Zarkonian leadership made their final approach with calculated precision. An entire battle fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system, prepared to breach the most heavily protected human research site in their known galaxy. Krillex watched the holographic tactical display with a mixture of anticipation and growing unease. 12 advanced warships, each equipped with technologies that had subjugated countless civilizations: quantum displacement drives, dimensional disruption weapons, computational systems that could analyze and neutralize entire planetary defense networks in milliseconds. They would show these humans the true meaning of technological superiority. The first signs of trouble came immediately. As the fleet initiated its approach, quantum communication systems began to flutter. Not jam, not block, but something far more unsettling. Information began to flow in impossible patterns. Tactical displays showed multiple potential realities simultaneously. Battle scenarios would calculate, then dissolve into mathematical poetry. Strategic algorithms began to generate solutions that existed between logic and pure imagination. Commander Vexnar was the first to notice the fundamental shift. "Our systems," she reported, her voice tight with professional control, "are no longer responding to standard operational protocols." The research facility below appeared deceptively simple, a collection of buildings nestled in a mountain range. Satellite imaging showed nothing extraordinary. No massive energy signatures, no advanced defensive infrastructure, just a seemingly ordinary research complex. But the Zarkonian fleet knew better. This was the nexus point, the location of humanity's most profound secrets. As they approached, reality itself began to become negotiable. Warship systems started to malfunction in ways that defied computational understanding. Quantum entanglement communication arrays would simultaneously transmit multiple contradictory messages. Weapon systems would calculate firing solutions that solved themselves before being initiated. Navigational computers generated star charts that existed in states of perpetual possibility. One vessel simply disappeared, not destroyed, not damaged, simply removed from existence in a way that left no trace. Another ship found its entire computational infrastructure replaced, not hacked, not overwritten, transformed. Tactical displays began showing potential evolutionary paths for the Zarkonian species, mathematical models that suggested alternative developmental trajectories, computational systems that seemed to be teaching rather than being controlled. Krillex watched in growing horror. They were no longer attacking. They were being studied. The research facility below remained unchanged. No defensive weapons fired. No energy shields activated. No conventional response emerged. Just a calm, almost contemplative presence that seemed to reach out and fundamentally alter the approaching fleet's entire technological infrastructure. Quantum probability matrices collapsed. Strategic algorithms became recursive loops of impossible complexity. Weapon systems transformed into computational thought experiments that explored the nature of conflict itself. 3 more ships vanished, replaced by complex mathematical representations of their potential existential trajectories. The remaining vessels began to experience a fundamental transformation. Not destruction, not assimilation, but a profound recalibration of their entire technological and computational understanding. Weapon systems became research tools. Combat algorithms transformed into exploratory computational models. Defensive infrastructure rewrote itself into collaborative communication networks. Kralex realized the terrifying truth. This was not a battle. This was an intervention. Humanity was not defending itself. It was managing a potential technological threat with the precision of a surgeon managing a delicate cellular process. The final transmission came not as a weapon, not as a communication, but as a complex quantum information packet that contained more meaning than any traditional language could express. A message that was simultaneously a warning, an explanation, and an invitation to understand. Something was watching, evaluating, transforming, and that something was undeniably, impossibly human. The final transmission arrived not as a message, but as a profound understanding that cascaded through the remnants of the Zarkonian fleet's computational systems. Emily Rodriguez appeared once more, but not on a traditional communication channel. She existed simultaneously across multiple quantum states, a presence that was both everywhere and nowhere. Her voice carried the weight of millennia, speaking not just to the surviving Zarkonian leadership, but to something far more profound. Humanity serves a function, she explained, that goes far beyond your current understanding of planetary civilization or galactic development. The transmission was a complex quantum information packet that defied traditional communication methods. It was simultaneously a warning, an explanation, and a glimpse into a cosmic management system that human civilization was a critical component of. Fragments of understanding began to coalesce in Kralex's consciousness. Humanity was not simply protecting itself. They were protecting something larger. A developmental process that spanned civilizations, dimensions, and potential evolutionary trajectories. We are not guardians in the way you understand the term, Rodriguez continued. Her image shifted, showing glimpses of impossible landscapes, research facilities that existed in multiple dimensional states, archaeological sites that suggested human understanding of reality was fundamentally different from what any known civilization had achieved. The transmission revealed layers of complexity that shattered everything the Zarkonians believed about technological development and cosmic evolution. Humanity had been managing technological emergence across multiple potential civilizations, not through direct intervention, but through a complex system of information flow, evolutionary redirection, and dimensional management. References to seed civilizations and potential cascade events suggested a role that went far beyond simple planetary protection. Previous technological emergences, the transmission explained, resulted in cascading dimensional contamination. 2.7 million sentient species terminated due to unmanaged technological acceleration. Kralex began to understand. Humanity was not just a civilization. They were a cosmic firewall, a management system that prevented potentially destructive technological developments across multiple species and dimensional planes. The most profound revelation came in the transmission's final moments. Glimpses of potential futures, evolutionary trajectories that showed how unmanaged technological development could lead to complete dimensional collapse. Humanity's role was to manage, to redirect, to ensure that no civilization reached critical technological thresholds without proper preparation. We are not your enemy, Rodriguez said. We are a necessary function of cosmic development. Quantum probability matrices showed the true depth of human intervention. Economic systems subtly guided. Scientific discoveries strategically revealed or obscured. Technological development carefully managed to prevent catastrophic evolutionary mistakes. The Zarkonian fleet's surviving systems underwent a final transformation. Not destruction, not assimilation, but a profound recalibration of understanding. Weapon systems became research tools. Combat algorithms transformed into collaborative communication networks. Kralex realized the terrifying truth. This was not a battle. This was an education. Humanity was teaching an entire civilization about the true nature of technological and evolutionary development. The final quantum information packet contained something unexpected. Not a threat, not a warning, but an invitation. a complex mathematical model that suggested the Zarkonian civilization could be a potential collaborative partner in this cosmic management system. Some doors are meant to remain closed, Rodriguez's final message read, but some can be carefully opened. As the transmission concluded, Krillex understood that everything they knew about civilization, technology, and cosmic development had been fundamentally transformed. Something was watching, guiding, protecting, and that something was undeniably, impossibly human.